All right, welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. In our video today, in our live stream today, we have Miss Nathalia Rupert. She is a registered dietitian. Nathalia, welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, should I say. Thank you for having me on this platform today. It's a pleasure being here.
Okay, great. Nathalia, you know, as we look around today, people talk a lot about the issues we have. We have the lockdown happening, but even before the lockdown, we have a problem with a lot of lifestyle diseases, you know, and persons were especially interested in the whole idea of managing their weight during this lockdown. Do you have a couple of tips that you might be able to share with that?
Oh, I definitely do. But before we go into the weight management bit of things, I want to kind of emphasize on the lifestyle diseases bit. Trinidad and Tobago is actually on the top 10 list in the world for chronic diseases, that being diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and it goes way beyond just weight management. And as much as weight has a big part to play when it comes to inflammation in the body and contributing to these said lifestyle diseases, it goes way beyond that. And it has a lot to do with your overall lifestyle, dietary habits, yes. But in terms of your activity level, in terms of family history, in terms of environmental factors, whether it may be stress-related factors and whatnot. So it's more than just weight management, but the persons that are tuning in today would like to hear about weight management, then we can definitely focus on that. With the unforeseen now, given the current global pandemic that we are going through or experiencing right now, it has definitely brought some bumps, some twists and turns for a lot of us. Some of us are now working remotely, some of us are out of jobs, but more so we aren't as active as we usually would be given the current restrictions that has been in place for well over a year, right? So when we are looking at weight management, we have to focus on the energy balance or energy scale. So usually to just make it a bit clear for persons who just think of a scale. So you have two sides of the scale, and in order to manage weight, of course, just like any scale, there must be a balance where each side, both the right and the left, they are balancing off each other. If you want to lose weight, so think of each side, one side is energy input, and then the other side is energy expenditure. So energy input meaning that what it is you consume, what it is you ingest, be it food or drink, and then energy and expenditure or output is your level of physical activity and how much energy that you actually burn, right? So if it is that you want to lose weight, then the scale must be tipped. To lose weight or to gain weight, the scale must be tipped. And usually for weight loss, energy expenditure must outweigh energy input, meaning that you have to be more active to burn out or burn off some of the calories that you are consuming. And what does that mean? Simply put, you eat less than you actually burn, or you burn out more. Again, because a lot of us aren't as physically active, we more or less try to focus on the diet. So saying, giving persons the total amount of calories that they should have, that is very subjective. It depends on the person, it depends on age, it depends on your activity level, it depends on your health needs and whatnot. But what I can say is focus on your fat and sugar intake mainly. Oftentimes we consume more fat and sugar than we think. So a lot of the processed foods particularly are high in fat, high in sugar, and also high in sodium. So as much as sugar is a nutrient that our body needs, or should I say carbohydrates, because sugar is simply carbohydrates in its simplest form, we need it for energy. However, some persons consume too much sugar and therefore get too much energy or more energy than they need, and therefore it eventually stores in the body. And a secondary form of sugar is fat, and it stores as fat in the body. In addition, fat in itself, our body does need fat as well. Our body needs fat for cell production and for hormones and for basically insulation and different metabolic processes in the body. However, fat is a energy dense macronutrient, meaning that we can get a lot of energy from a very little amount of fat. So therefore, the more fat you consume, the more energy that you can actually consume. You actually consume double the amount of energy from fat that you will get from carbohydrates or protein. And then when it comes to sodium, sodium can also affect weight as well, because excess sodium contributes to fluid retention. It can also affect your hormones as well, and then contribute to weight gain. So those are the three things that we want to focus on. When it comes to sugar intake, one of the main ways to cut back on sugar is by reducing your sugar sweetened beverage intake, right? And when we say sugar sweetened beverage, we are not just focusing on soft drinks or the sweet drinks like we will say in Trinidad and Tobago. We are also focusing on juices, and not just juice, but juice drinks, because a lot of the juices that we consume or may get in the market, whether it may be in the grocery stores or supermarket, are usually juice drinks. And what do we mean by juice drinks is that it's not most times 100% fruit juice. So a lot of the times manufacturers, now there are 100% fruit juices on the market, but then it's important to make the distinguish or to make the differentiation between the two. So juice drinks are basically when a lot of the nutrients, things like the vitamins, minerals, fiber and whatnot, the things that we actually need to boost up our immune system is removed or extracted in the processing, and then it's added back in a synthetic form and not the most bioavailable form for us. Also, sugar is also added to that as well, in addition to the natural sugar. So when you have natural sugars from the fruits, meeting the added sugars, that's more than the body can actually assimilate or more than the body actually needs. And sugar, and that in itself can cause inflammation to the body and also send up your calories and contribute to things like weight gain. So when we are talking about sugar sweetened beverages, we are also talking about that as well. We are talking about flavored milk drinks. There are some popular ones on the market. Those vanilla drinks and those chocolate drinks and strawberry drinks and whatnot. Be mindful of those. The beverages that we call quote unquote teas, because you know in Trinbago, everything hot is a tea, right? So we have those chocolate drinks and those malted beverages, right? Those as well naturally contain sugar in them. So if you know your morning or evening routine for you and your family will be to like mix those chocolate drinks or those teas as we call them, try to avoid adding sugar to them because they already have sugar. So those are little steps. It's a simple thing as just trying to drink more water, swapping out one sugar sweetened beverage for water. So if it is you drink sugar sweetened beverages 3 times for the day, aim to have it at least once for the day. That way you cut back on calories. Another thing is with the fats, fried foods. Now fried foods is very popular, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but all around the world. And fried food isn't just limited to chicken and chips or fries and chicken or fried fish. It's also caloric, things like your doubles and whatnot. So just to be mindful of those things. And this current lockdown is more like a blessing in disguise for some, because some persons have fast food regularly, like they depend on fast food. So now with restaurants, with the restrictions and restaurants being closed, we are now kind of chicken hole to kind of prepare our own meals, and that in itself can help us to prepare meals healthier. Watch the fat in the pot. So if you know you use cooking butter in the pot, try to desist from doing that. If it is, you know, some recipes we understand calls for things like coconut milk to add that additional flavor to it. Coconut milk in itself is actually a fat. and it's also your saturated fat. So maybe if we don't necessarily need it, we can cut back on that. Some recipes where we do, like, let's say when we're stewing or we're currying, we usually add oil to start the pot, whether it may be to chunky or burn the curry or burn the sugar or brown it, but we don't necessarily have to add oil to the pot. We can just burn the sugar or burn the curry. So those are little ways to cut back on fats and little ways to cut back on sugar. Same thing with the sodium as well. Be mindful of sodium because it's a naturally occurring element in a lot of the foods that we consume. It's not just salt alone. Sodium comes in canned foods and canned goods and canned items, a lot of packaged items. So when it is you are preparing, try to avoid adding both salt and seasoning salts or taste makers to the pot. Try to add either or, and preferably like your dried herbs and spices, your fresh seasoning and whatnot. So those are just like some simple tips to assist with weight loss, because there's more that we can discuss, but of course that goes beyond weight, basically healthy dietary habits.
Yeah, no, I've listened to everything you said there, and I am sure I could hear some people with some big stoops, because they'll be saying, but so what do I eat, right? What am I going to eat? Because, you know, everything is a habit, and sometimes we don't realize that. So that it's a matter, I would want to say, of making a commitment to yourself. It's a matter of, instead of maybe thinking about getting health insurance, besides health insurance, you get health assurance by following the steps that you have indicated there. And it calls for a shift, it calls for a change. Given your first-hand experience with seeing people with these lifestyle diseases, and I'm sure people, if they didn't know about the word comorbidities, after and during this COVID, they've learned about the very negative impact that comorbidities and obesity have, you know, for people who get COVID, how having those comorbidities, how it shifts things, you know. And I think I saw a report today where they were saying that a lot of the deaths, the comorbidities, were hypertension and the diabetes. And I don't know if it is, maybe you could share a little bit in terms of trying to say to people, well, you know, a healthy diet can be fun, you know, and how maybe they can make it fun.
Right. So yes, a healthy diet is actually a fun diet. And I tend to say nutrition in itself, nutrition is complex. It's very complex, but it's not complicated. So you can, instead of focusing on what you have to eliminate from your diet, focus on what you can do to enhance your diet. So we can focus on dietary habits, because weight loss is not just a matter of just losing weight. Managing or trying to avoid comorbidities or chronic conditions is not just about that. It's about changing the lifestyle habits that got you there in the first place. Because it's very easy to say, yes, I did this to lose weight, but then we did whatever we had to do, and then the weight comes back on because the same old habits present itself again. So it's a simple thing as consuming fruits and vegetables daily. Now, at this point, this sounds very cliche to me because I say it every single day to persons, to clients, to patients. Now, fruits and vegetables we have at our disposal here in the Caribbean. Whereas we may rely on imports for certain vegetables, for certain foods, we have them here at Libertum. We have them at our disposal, right? Healthy eating in itself doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. And this is why a simple thing like carrots and pumpkin are relatively affordable. And I'm saying this for persons who can actually afford it, because while we sit here and we're chatting about food and healthy eating, we understand that it's also about food security, because there are some persons that wake up on mornings on an empty stomach and go to bed on an empty stomach, right? But relatively speaking, there are a lot of affordable fruits and vegetables. My advice, get things when they are in season. So purchase seasonal items, because usually when in season, it's usually a bit cheaper when you're looking at supply and demand. If you can get something on sale, get it on sale. If it is, you are a grocery shopper and you're accustomed getting your fresh produce in the supermarket, my advice to you is get it in the market. It's usually cheaper in the market compared to the supermarket. The quality of it is no different. It's just the price, and you pay a cheaper price and you get more value for your money if you're looking at cutting back. So fruits and vegetables, we can have them every day. A simple thing like bananas. Bananas are readily available. We have them at our disposal. It's available throughout the year. It may not be the most favorite fruit, but if you know you may not be a lover of banana, you can put it in a smoothie. You can make a banana bread. You can make a banana pancake. Find ways to incorporate fruits in your diet. Same thing with vegetables as well. Vegetables are prebiotics. Our body relies on them. Our gut health relies on them to help cleanse out your colon and to improve your gut flora. So it's a simple thing as including vegetables with your meals. If it is you can get tomatoes and you get them relatively affordable, get it. If it is all you can get is lettuce, you get it. If it is you have a neighbor who might have a kitchen garden and plant, and you all do like a barter system. Some persons actually have a green thumb. You can start your own kitchen garden. A lot of us have fruit trees in our yard. Some of us have mango trees, pomegranate trees, and it's flourishing, and we just leave it there to waste. If it is it's not something that you may like, bag it up, give it to your neighbors. They'll be just as happy for it. So it's a matter of us getting back to the kind of like old time days where we do like we trade offs. If it is you have something that your neighbor may not have, and your neighbor might have something that you may not have, you do a simple exchange. In times like this, we really have to live like brothers and sisters and be our siblings. Keep on lookout for each other in that regard. But it's a simple thing as having fruits and vegetables daily. If you can't have fruits and vegetables, have peas and beans. Now, peas is what is considered a superfood. Peas is overlooked, but peas has fiber. It has micronutrients and macronutrients. So you're getting carbohydrates from peas. You're getting protein from peas, right? And it helps for your gut as well. For persons, of course, who don't usually get gassy for peas. So if all you can afford to feed your family is rice and peas, feed your family rice and peas. It may not be the best meal, but it's a balanced meal. If you have pumpkin, put some pumpkin in the peas, and that in itself is even a better meal. Focus more on food preparation. So it's not a matter of saying, don't have this, but watch the way in which you prepare it. So some persons might stew their peas, so they brown and they start the pot with sugar. That is something that you could try to refrain from or avoid doing. So we're not saying don't eat the peas and rice. It could still have the same nice flavor and everything, but try not to stew your peas, boil your peas. Some persons use the world of taste makers and seasoning salts. That in itself can contribute to high blood pressure over an extended period of time. Persons will say, well, I don't use too much, I will just use a dash, or I might use a sprinkle. That sprinkle every day adds up over time. And that's why we have things like lifestyle diseases, because it's habits over a lifetime. If it is, you are somebody that you prefer the convenience, so canned peas is your go-to. We don't usually recommend canned peas for persons who are trying to watch their blood pressure or at increased risk for heart disease. And this is where you're looking at your family history also comes in. So if you have a family history of heart disease, high blood pressure, try to avoid the high sodium items. So canned peas is high in sodium, but it's convenient. But there are also other types of peas that are convenient as well. There's frozen peas. There's the pre-burst peas. It's not just green pigeon peas alone. It have dal or split peas. It have red beans that are already pre-burst. It has black-eyed peas. It has something called a pressure cooker that we can make use of as well for those of us who have it, right? And yes, some persons may be saying, but I just rinse out the peas or let the water run on it. As much as that can help, the peas will have already absorbed a lot of that sodium already. So you're still consuming the same sodium and you're still adding salt and the seasoning salts. So it's more focusing on dietary patterns or habits and focusing not just on more or less just eliminating our foods, because we embrace our foods and we embrace our culture, right? But it's a matter of not what you eat, but how you prepare it, and also portion control. So speaking of the how, portion control is so important because persons can eat healthy, but still gain weight. And that is because sometimes we eat more than we need, right? So be mindful of the portion. So a simple rule of thumb could be use smaller plates, right? It's because you might still want to fill up your plate, but if you use a smaller plate, you fill up the plate, yes, so you get that satisfaction that your plate is filled, but it's still less than if you use a bigger plate. Another thing is making half your plate vegetables once you can. So half the plate could be veggies, a quarter of the plate could be your starches, and a quarter could be protein. So the veggies could be pak choy, it could be dashing bush, it could be a fresh salad, it could be a chunky veg. A quarter could be noodles or ground provision, because those are the complex carbs that we would recommend. And a quarter of it could be peas, beans, it could be fish, it could be chicken, it could be turkey, whichever protein you decide that you want to have. So that way you know vegetables are more or less low calorie and they have the fiber that your gut needs, as well as phytonutrients, help boost up your immune system. You're still getting a little bit of carbs, but not as much because you're not as active as you usually would be. So you really don't need that much energy right now. And then you're still getting your protein from whether it's your animal products or vegetarian protein options. And we do need the protein because protein is the building block of life. So protein is needed for your muscles, for tissue repair and whatnot. And protein also helps, the enzymes and the protein also helps to break down the rest of your meal as well by the time it gets in your gut. So portion control, watching how we prepare our meals, watching our food purchases as well, always looking for the healthiest options available and making use of what we have available to us.
You know, and that is so important. They say, you know, eat things that are local, that are near to you. And a lot of times, you know, I think maybe it's the taste. With time, we had, you know, the apples and the grapes and the pears and all sorts of things, and appreciation for our own. Now, avocados and avocados, that's one of my favorite things. And,
mine too.
yeah, and you know, I don't know if you want to chat a little bit about maybe like avocados and how that is like a healthy fat, right? Or that's healthy, you would say, in what way? And how maybe you can use that, because sometimes people, as you say, they go overboard. You say, well, okay, this thing is healthy, and then they don't understand that while it is healthy, that doesn't mean that you should overdo it, because there's such a thing. Mangoes are in season. Please do not sit down and eat 10 mangoes at once, you know, and then you're diabetic. And, you know, so it's like moderation. And you talk about your family history, the importance of people knowing their family history. And would the eating prevent or delay lifestyle diseases? The healthy eating, you know, like if it is, you know, there's diabetes maybe run in your family from on your father's side or something like that. How significant is a healthy diet for that individual in trying to reduce or prevent the occurrence of that disease it happening to them?
Yeah. So sometimes some diseases are really the inevitable, but you can reduce your risk or lower your risk for the conditions. So family history is actually one of the main risk factors for diabetes as well as high blood pressure, because it's genetic. So once it's in your genetics or your DNA, particularly parents, grandparents, your more immediate family members more so. Eating, nutrition is so important and so often overlooked. And what I will say is that, at least here in Trinidad and Tobago, or by extension the Caribbean, especially Trinidad and Tobago, we are a reactive society. We aren't so proactive. Some persons can agree to disagree, but we are more reactive. We wait until something happens and when the ship is sinking, then to try and do what we should have done in the first place to avoid that from happening. And what I can say is these chronic diseases are a cost to society. The person's medical bills are so high that persons have to rely on government assistance for medication that some persons can't even afford to purchase it for themselves. In addition to that, the psychological impact that these conditions have on the person or the patient in themselves and their family members, when you look at avoiding it to what it is, it far outweighs. So if it is you can focus on good nutrition to prevent these conditions, I would advise it. And yes, to answer your question, it definitely can. So say for instance, I know that my parents are diabetic or my grandparents are diabetic, but yet still I go overboard on the high sugar items. Is juice and soft drink at every meal, condensed milk in my tea. And mind you, condensed milk is sweetened condensed milk. So it's loaded with sugar. So some persons might say, well, I don't use sugar in my tea, I just use condensed milk. Condensed milk is sweetened full fat milk, right? Then is pastries, and is the jam tarts and the currants roll. And then I've eaten 4 and 5 pot spoons of rice. And you know, the typical Sunday lunch. So it's rice with potato salad and the macaroni pie. So it's starches. Plus I'm washing it down with a nice big glass of juice. It's a homemade juice, maybe lime juice, but it have plenty sugar in it. So if it is you continuously eat like that, over time, you can form insulin resistance in your body because your body has to continuously be in breaking down mode of sugar, and over time that can cause damage and even inflammation to the body. And being that you're already genetically predisposed to it increases your risk. So what you eat, what you put into your body can definitely affect your health. And if it is, you know, you can avoid it to avoid the medical bills, to avoid lower quality of life, knowing that you have to be checking yourself with insulin, or knowing that you can't go to a family gathering and just eat and be merry and enjoy yourself because you're afraid that your sugar levels might spike so high that you could go into a coma, or you know, any little shift you do, if you miss your medication, what could happen? So just doing what you have to do now to avoid the consequences later on far outweighs. If you were to ask me for my personal opinion, and yes, your current diet can actually make or break and can actually contribute. It can actually make you unhealthy or make you healthy.
Yes, I think, you know, so I hope that persons, you know, who are tuned in, you know, they start to look maybe at prevention, because there isn't a cure for diabetes, contrary to what you hear out there through many people, through some, you know, different persons saying they have a cure or whatever. So there's no cure. So really try to prevent and at least manage your risk based on your genetic, you know, in your family hereditary predisposition. I would like at this time to invite persons, if you have any comments, to please drop them in the any questions or comments. So I'm looking at that now to see if I have any comments that are coming through. So persons can comment. While we wait, I would ask Nathalia, any other thing that you would like to use this opportunity to share while we wait to see if we get any questions or comments?
Oh yes, I encourage persons to be more active, get moving more. It's so important from the little ones go up. Now I understand the restrictions, it's a bit difficult on us. But for most of us, we live in the time of the technological era. And some of us have access to internet, Wi-Fi, smart devices, smartphones, smart TVs. Even though gyms may be closed or you may not be able to go outdoors as freely as you would like, make use of the internet. You can go download exercise videos, sign up for an online workout program, go on YouTube and look for nice little exercise or workout videos that you can do with your family. The World Health Organization recommends at least, and that is a minimum of 30 minutes of physical activity for adults per day just to be healthy, or not necessarily per day, at least 30 minutes a day, 150 minutes a week minimum. And for children, 60 minutes of regular physical activity or active play a day. So if we know that we aren't currently up and moving, it's important to move. Our bodies were made to move. So my advice to you is, in addition to focusing on what you eat, when you eat, how you eat, and how much you eat, it's also very important to focus on your level of physical activity as well. And that also helps with weight management.
Okay. Level of activity is critical. All right, I'm not seeing any comments or any coming through, but I would want to say that I think it's important that persons, you know, if it is you take away some key things, if it is you were to take away 2 key things from this, Nathalia, what would be the 2 key things you would want people to take away from this session?
2 of the key things that I would like people to take away from this session is to watch their meal prep in terms of cooking methods and how they prepare meals. Make more informed choices when you are doing your food purchases, and just try to support local.